You said something that really struck me. You said that FP&A should operate more like a product team than a reporting function. And I was like, that's beautiful. FP&A as a product team. Can you break that down for me?
I think of FP&A in its best case. We really act as the connective tissue across the organization and through different data sets as well. The way that we structure our team is I have essentially 5 sub teams that are all partnered within every department at the organization. So we have full coverage across the org. And the reality too is that we have access to really all the data, which is very rare within an organization. We have all the customer data, all the revenue data, all the usage data, all the expense data, all the headcount data. And it's very rare that any team within an organization has that much access. So how we actually leverage that and utilize it really is to make sure that the different departments understand how they're operating in context of the whole company. Also that they're talking to each other so that the way that we're resource allocated and growing is consistent across different departments. And it gives them a little bit of a guiding light back to the financials and the numbers at the end of the day. So I think it is somewhat analogous to a product organization where they're kind of the intersection of engineers who are actually building and making the product. And then the commercial side of the house, which are those that are actually selling the product and the customers that are utilizing it. And there's this constant sort of feedback loop across all those different pieces. We kind of sit at a similar intersection where at the end of the day, we're finance people and we have access to all this data and we're managing the financials, but we're really supporting the organization and, achieving its objectives and growing together.
What are the 5 pillars?
Go to market, sales, customer success, basically everything pre and post sales to actually sell the product.
So that's a business partner that's on go to market then?
Yeah, one part of the team that runs go to market FP&A as a function. The other big departmental piece is R&D, so both the engineering and the product sides of the house. I have a team that does corporate FP&A, which essentially brings together all of those pieces, sort of a consolidation to manage the P&L, and then also partners with G&A or the other corporate functions. And then I have a team that does all of our revenue forecasting and analytics. And then I have one more team that does what we call data and insights, which essentially helps us leverage all of this data as a multiplier across the rest of the team to be successful with that information.
It's so fascinating and awesome how far FP&A has come in the last 10 years. So I got my start on the operator side of the table after coming from private equity in building out an FP&A team. I didn't know what FP&A was. They just wanted someone who was like a financial athlete, for lack of a better term, who could go in and create an operating plan that wasn't created by the accounting team. And the way that you describe it now is what I think all high-performing FP&A teams are doing, where they're splitting it out between the go-to-market side, the R&D side, the corporate side, and then you have these other functional areas as well that tap into different strategic veins of the company.
Yeah. And my background was somewhat similar too. I kind of got into this, the FP&A role, not knowing exactly what it was. I'm a smart guy and I like, numbers and analysis and I want to figure it out. And then gradually just organically building on top of the foundation that I was building. And then knowing that I needed to partner with everybody at the organization in a more dedicated way to be able to achieve both my objectives as a finance leader, but then also their objectives to actually run the business.
Is the product per se that each of those 5 teams is putting out different?
Yes, because it's contextualized based on each department's kind of needs, and I think about the product, right, that we're delivering. In its most traditional sense, FP&A can be a reporting function, right? Like every FP&A team everywhere has some sort of reporting that you're delivering. Its most sort of commodity sense can be a BVA, like, okay, how is the year progressing and how does that compare to the annual plan that we started from? And that can be very high level, just at like a financial sort of aggregated sense. But the further you click down into sort of the different departments, the KPIs and what actually drives that performance is very different. And then ultimately, I think the product that we actually want to deliver is something that's much more proactive and also strategic. And in order to do that, you also need to almost put yourself in the lens or the seat of those operators. And what they actually care about is going to be very different depending on the department or the angle that they're coming from.
Well, just to drill into that, how do you know you're doing a good job? Because it's not like you have a revenue target and it's not like you have a product roadmap that you're trying to hit these timelines, which also links to an underlying revenue target. Is it a different gauge for each of those 5 groups? Or is it just, hey, the company's hitting their number, we must be doing a good job?
It's a good question. And it is an interesting concept because as very data-driven people, we actually don't have many KPIs that relate to ourselves. I think the most sort of numeric or quantitative relate to, especially as a public company, we do have deliverables, right? So every single quarter we're issuing guidance and then we're executing against it. So having good visibility and understanding any variances relative to that guidance, which ultimately is based on the foundation of forecasts that my team are putting out. I think that cycle is one that's very telling of any oopsies along the way or a nice steady flow of performance that you would expect. And then the other one too is relative to the annual plan. We set an annual budget, we set annual, sales targets, revenue targets, profit targets, and execution on that either is what you would expect or you can explain any variances. I think those are markers of success. But really at the end of the day, I think, this is a people business. If I'm being genuine, the markers of success that I actually experience is really people just reaching out and saying like, this person within your team added a lot of value to this work stream, or they gave us visibility into a trend that I didn't even know was happening. And now I'm thinking about and I'm using with my leadership team to actually run our business. And then ultimately too, I think the major marker that comes out of that is things like people's career development and promotion cycles and getting really interesting, different opportunities, whether it's insularly into my group or elsewhere within the company and doing other things. And frankly, the investments that we've received from the business, which is, a sign of those dividends paying off of the value that we're adding to the org.
I often think about business partnering success being if you turned it off, would the departmental leaders just be heartbroken? Would they just be like, I don't know what to do?
It's actually interesting being at Datadog because sometimes we use, even for our own product, we use kind of this car analogy where you can drive a vehicle without a dashboard. Like, everything works, like the steering wheel works, the engine works, the wheels, they will turn. So you can drive a car without that. But what we provide is that dashboard. So you actually understand how fast you're going. You understand how much gas you have in the engine. Like you understand the actual performance of the vehicle so you can drive forward with confidence. I think the same analogy works within FP&A. Like, yes, my whole team can disappear tomorrow and the business isn't going to fold. But I think the visibility that all those leaders feel like they're receiving will dissipate. The connectivity between those different parts of the organization will go away. And then what the forward-looking momentum of the organization looks like, there's going to be a lot of question marks around it that you don't have seasoned folks to help you navigate through.
That's an incredible analogy.
The CFO role has evolved faster than the tools built to support it. Most finance teams are still running infrastructure designed for a job that no longer exists. The reporting, the reconciling, the close that bleeds into the next month or quarter. That's not finance, that's overhead with a really crappy title. And the cost isn't just your time, it's everything your best people aren't doing while they're buried in it. Agentic finance shouldn't multiply your output, it should eliminate the work that was never worth doing in the first place. And that's why I run mostly media on Brex, an intelligent finance platform with AI-powered agents that capture expenses automatically, enforce policy before the spend happens, and close your books in minutes instead of weeks. 35,000 companies like OpenAI, Coinbase, Anthropic, and DoorDash already run on Brex. It's time to get Brex AF. Learn more at brex.com/metrics.